Hello, pioneers. I am here with my friend Kyle Bro, talented, handsome, has it all, essentially.
No.
I knew he was going to disagree.
I don't know about all that. Has it all?
I knew he was going to disagree. The brains, the artistic prowess? What do you mean?
The singleness, the weight crushing, the crushing weight of the world financially on my shoulders. Thank God I don't have any student debt, but
Some of us do.
oh yeah. Well, you got 2 degrees. 2 degrees finer. 2 degrees hotter.
And we're
I
here
didn't
to
have
talk
that.
to you guys about the E in love, which I deem as emotional intelligence.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Is that what you think it is?
It is.
No.
Other than even more than I adore, which is from the song. Okay, sorry, I'm like this. So emotional intelligence to me is something that I believe is twofold, and so it's like not only can I understand and recognize my own emotions, but I can also understand and recognize the emotions of others. And if I'm gonna be honest, my emotional intelligence outward is much higher than my emotional intelligence inward. But
I will co-sign on that.
that's due to my own personal, life experiences and difficulties. But I am increasing my emotional intelligence internally.
Slowly but surely. Slowly but surely. We're
Can
getting
I
there.
point out how my friends are just honest for no reason?
I mean, what did you ask me to be here for but to tell the truth?
Yay.
The whole truth.
What joy.
Pioneer faith exposed, not clickbait.
You can't expose me because I'm authentic and transparent in Christ, so...
In Christ, but in this house.
Anywho, so I feel like emotional intelligence is one of those things that is really important when it comes to relationships, because a lot of times the reason why we fumble or things crumble is because we don't understand our own emotions or the emotions of other people, unfortunately. And I feel like the bigger one is our own emotions. I know that in other friendships and relationships I've had, whenever I've not been in a place where I understand myself and my emotions, communication breaks down that much easier, that much quicker, because it's like, I don't know how to tell you I'm mad or I'm sad or you did this.
You still have a hard time saying that you're mad at me for something. And there are times where I'm like, you're angry, and you're like, I'm not. I'm like, no, this is what anger looks like. You would not be raising your voice and being upset with me, calling you out on your anger if you were not upset with me. And it's a perfectly normal and absolutely acceptable emotion to have. You are entitled to your anger, but you need to call it what it is. Call a spade is what I'm saying. Let's call a spade
Identifying your emotions.
Yeah.
This is true. I feel like for me, because anger gets this bad rep, it's a lot harder for me to actually take ownership of my anger, because I'm just like, when you think of anger, you think of people punching holes in walls, breaking stuff.
Well, I think
like
that
your upstairs neighbors.
but I think anger has a negative connotation because we perceive that there are good emotions and bad emotions, and we try to suppress the bad ones and only showcase the good ones. When in actuality, every emotion is all equal. It's just which ones are opportune, which ones are volatile, which ones you are putting too much energy towards rather than actually understanding the problem of why you feel that way. There are some times where you should not feel happy about stuff that you absolutely do. You should not be happy about the death of somebody unless they really did you wrong or something like that. But some people are just at the funeral. They're there are ways to have positive emotions that are not what's the word? You say it is such a good word. It's when you're aligned with when you have your emotional and emotions.
Congruent.
Thank you. When you're congruent with your emotional understanding and your emotional outward person, and you're congruent in that, it's very, very interesting to see that you're a developed person at that point in time. But I think a lot of people think that if I'm angry, it automatically means you're not congruent. When in actuality, you being angry and punching a hole through a wall in somebody's chest cavity is you being incongruent, not you being upset because somebody did you wrong. You have the right to be angry and upset that somebody wronged you. You just don't need to kill them. That's the thing. That's the thing.
So it's not what you feel, it's how you feel it.
Exactly. I think a lot of emotional intelligence comes from, one, knowing who you are, whether that's good or bad. I think there's a lot of characteristics where, a lot of characteristics where like people think they're like either a good person or a bad person because I did insert this and I reacted this way.
Factual.
When in actuality, you're just a person who reacted. Did you react the best way? Yes or no? What can you learn from that so that you can better adjust for the next time that occurs? Now, sometimes there ain't no next time. Your Uncle Phil ain't gonna die twice. Unless you got two uncles in the same Phil. Yeah, emotional intelligence. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think emotional intelligence is hard. I think it's hard for some people who are like really, really like focused on like book smarts. Like if you're a person who's like really, really like into like academic intelligence, or you're really into like, I don't know. It's just like, to me, like emotional intelligence isn't hard because people wear their emotions on their sleeves whether they mean to or not. You're not as good at hiding. Well, like no one is as good at hiding their emotions as they think they are.
That's fair.
We think we're all really good at like hiding when we're upset, hiding when we're angry, hiding when we're this, that, and the third, because we're conditioned to believe that we're supposed to hide all of these negative emotions. When in actuality, one, you're not supposed to hide them. You're supposed to talk about them so that it doesn't happen again. And two, you're not that good at hiding it, so it doesn't matter whether you're trying or not. Like,
oh my gosh, and actually that makes me think of like relationships, of how there would be times where I would try to like hide my emotions, and he'd be like,
but girl, I know who you are.
And I'm just like, but you know, no, you don't know.
Right, I'm like, oh, I was just talking to this about, one of my exes were like still good friends, and so I was talking to him and he was like, you know, I want to apologize because there was a point in time where I told you that I didn't want us to say I love you as much because it felt like it was like cheapening it, and it wasn't like making it as like positive and or as valued as it was. I was like, why does me telling you I love you devalue that I love you? This is one of those examples of like using positive emotions that you think you have to like mask and hide to like regulate what your emotional output is. But the fact of the matter is, why would I not want to tell you I love you every day? At all times that I feel it.
That, yeah, because people will say that like, oh, if you say I love you often, then you don't mean it, and I'm just like,
well, yeah, well, especially like Caucasian people, like I've noticed that like a lot of my Caucasian friends, like they're told to like really control their emotions regardless. Like a lot of people in the white families that I have been told of, they don't tell each other that they love each other, period, like at all.
My mom was like that.
Like unless somebody is dead or it's somebody's birthday or like a very like specific event.
That was the only time I got I loved you. Like, and she was leaving town, or there was this extended period we weren't seeing each other, or somebody died, or it was my birthday.
Exactly, and that's one of those things where it's like, why would I not want to tell somebody how I feel at all points in time? Why are we so terrified of telling people that we care or about anything, even positive?
It's from the vulnerability, because it's like, I feel like if I tell you how I feel, then I'm giving you some sort of power.
Well, here's the thing. This is the same ex I'm speaking of at the time when we were dating. The first time I told him I like love him and I like consciously did it, not just like me like saying it by accident. I told him, I was like, I love you, and I don't expect you to say it back, and I don't want you to say it back unless you mean it. But I need you to know where I'm at emotionally, so that you're aware, and leave that at that. Nobody on the planet does that. That is very like. And it seems very, it seems very Rayman of it, but like, it's very just like clear and honest, like, this is how I feel. I don't want you to feel this way if you don't feel this way. This is not me trying to attach my emotion to your emotion. Feel what you want to feel individually. I'm just letting you know where I'm at.
No, it makes me think of like, I was reading this book about the mastery of love and how they were saying like we're like that as kids, and then adults like
children
grab a hold of us and then shape and mold us and make us become scared of our feelings and teach us like all of these bad things of like, oh well, anger is bad, happiness is good, sadness is bad, and so then you just have these separations when as our natural default is to just feel and just be that way. When a 2-year-old's upset, she finna go off.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like the consequence of like landfill emotions. I think a lot of our emotional intelligence declines from childhood when we get that landfill emotion of shame. because then we're told, oh, I shouldn't do this. Maybe I shouldn't have that extra serving of food at dinner. Maybe I shouldn't tell everybody that I'm upset when I am. Maybe I shouldn't cry when people tell me that it's not that big of a deal. Maybe I'm not allowed to feel how I feel anymore. That we not only have that landfill of shame being filled in, but we're also taking everything else that isn't going into the landfill and sorting it by what's good, what's bad, what can stay, what cannot, what needs to be put away, what needs to be presented, all that kind of stuff. And it puts us in a place of organization of the emotions in a non-constructive, unhealthy way.
Yeah, because literally, like, one of my friends was saying that he has like a house in his mind, and so his emotions each have a room, but they're all like locked in the room. And I was like, that sounds like the most unhealthy.
That sounds terrifying.
The most unhealthy.
Wasn't that like a horror movie where it was like you go into each room and it has a different like room of hell or something, like a sin or like something like that? That's a movie. Like that's an actual horror movie. What you just described is what your friend just described to you was an actual horror movie. Where like you go into each individual room and it has like something else that's like more terrible than the last. And they're all locked away until you open it. That's horrifying. Your emotions need to be in a loft. They need to be in a completely open space that is contained within yourself, but you have complete control and sight of all of the things that are yours at all points in time. Now, some people, they like to compartmentalize, put things on a shelf or, in a box in the back and not want to handle things right away. And sometimes that can lead them to holding on to things that they didn't even realize that they were holding on to for so long because they ended up leaving it there so long that they forgot that it even happened, let alone thought about working on it. And it can be damaging. But unpacking those boxes will allow you to really... You seem attacked by this. Unpacking your boxes is gonna let your space like free up and move in. I mean, think about like when you actually move into a new place. Like, when does your place feel like home? Does it feel like home when you have all the boxes just strewn about and you're having to dig through everything to try to find where everything is? Or does it feel like your home when everything's laid out and where it's supposed to be? It feels less cluttered. It feels less crazy. It feels like you. So when you unpack all your boxes and just like put them where they're supposed to actually be, suddenly everything just feels right.
Okay, so how do you identify where they're supposed to actually be?
I usually go by what they're telling me. So like, if I'm upset, I'm gonna vocalize that. And there are times even like now where I like one of my coworkers, because we're in quarantine still, and we get to hang out because like we live alone. I mean, you and Jalen live together, but Jalen works from home. You work primarily from home, and I work from home. So like, and we live like literally down the hill from one another. So like, we're fine with seeing each other because we have like those safety precautions in place. I wanted to go see a friend of mine, and while we were having a conversation, he had told me that he had like gone somewhere and done something. And I was like, okay, but were you like wearing a mask and all this stuff? And he was like, no, but I was blah blah blah. And I was like, well, I can't see you now. Because you haven't been doing healthy things, so I can't see you. And then later on that day, after I told him that, he was like, I kind of felt like you were disappointed in me. And I didn't even think about it until he said that. And I was like, you know what? I am. Like, I didn't mean for it to come across that way. I didn't mean to like make it sound like I was disappointed. But the truth was, I was disappointed. Because on the one hand, it seemed inconsiderate to my health. Two, it meant that I wasn't going to get to see you or the other people that were in your household that I also wanted to see. It just didn't allow me the comfort of feeling like you were considering me in that moment. But because I decided to look at what they were saying, reevaluate what I was seeing in myself, and think about it, I was able to say, you know what? You're right, this is how I feel, and here's why. But I didn't pack that box up and just be like, no, I wasn't disappointed. I just know... I didn't do that. I looked at it. I said, let's think about this. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, that's right. And that's not always going to be right. A lot of people will tell you that you feel a certain way when that's not how you feel at all. But if you don't take the time to examine it for yourself and you just take it at face value, you're not really opening the box. You're just saying, oh, this is the box now. Stack it over here.
Okay, but what he was saying made me think about the fact that, like, if you're that honest and congruent, then that takes out a lot of, like, people with the assumptions when it comes to being in a relationship of like, oh, well, you feel this type of way and that's why you I'm gonna go do this, since you be just so reactionary to each other's perceived emotions instead of just being like, this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah, and I don't do that. I don't do that because I just tell people how I feel. I mean, like, obviously there are still like pleasantries. I'm not like a psychopath where I'm like, I hate my job. Like, I would never say that even if it were true, but I really like the people that I work with, so it's usually not. I just don't like stupid people at work, which who does? but like, I think a lot of people. So I had an itch on my leg and now I forgot. I think that a lot of people aren't congruent because they're not honest with themselves because of that shame of like, I was taught to not feel this way as a child, so now I don't feel like I can share these things with you. In actuality, if you did share what you actually feel with people would probably feel like you actually respect them more because you're telling them what your truth is, and then they're probably more likely to listen to you unless they're incongruent, in which case now you know to get rid of them. But I was also this is when I was not congruent. But I was not incongruent in a different way because instead of allowing people to manipulate my emotions, I manipulated others. So what I would do, I mean, this is not good person activities. So that I'm sharing with you. Don't do this. Don't be like me. But this is what I was like, the person that was like the matchmaker, but like I could ruin your life as well. So like I was the kind of guy that could like get people to start dating in first period, have them break up, and then get back together before the end of fourth. Yeah, very, very like master manipulator of emotions in high school. And then I realized the only reason I was doing this is because emotionally I was not well. and it was a lot easier to control other people's emotions than it was to control my own. So that's what I did.
Relatable. And
there are people like that in the world. So it's like you really have to check in with yourself and really have the confidence to validate. Wow.
I was with that
she's
word.
got 2 degrees. I've only got 1. But
that changes intelligence level.
But to validate your own emotions, because if you can't recognize how you feel, then you can just let anybody tell you how you feel. And then you'll never know. You're just going with whatever anybody says. And that's the truth, Ruth.
This is true.
But yeah, so like I had to learn that like my feelings, especially like the negative ones, aren't necessarily bad, but I have to recognize what they are first, and then decide what to do with them. And a lot of learning how you feel about yourself has a lot more of listening to others than you would realize. Because when you listen to how you feel affects other people, it can change things for how you recognize, like, maybe this was something else. You still have to obviously take everyone's advice with like a grain of salt. Because somebody can be like, you made me cry and I felt so sad. I never thought that you would do this to me and I can't even say that you said. But like, you literally took the one green Skittle out of a pot of 20 of them. Like there are some people who are not aligned with their emotions, but like listening to how other people react to things and seeing, is this reasonable or not based on what actions that I did, can really help you measure if you're like going crazy or not. So like I feel like people do the opposite where it's like, oh, this person felt this way, so clearly what I have done was too much.
Yes.
When in actuality, what you did had somebody react in an overwhelming way for them. But that doesn't necessarily mean that what you did was too much. It just means that something might be going on with them that caused them to react the way that they did. And that's the communication aspect of emotional intelligence, because you have to be able to both communicate in a relationship why you feel what you feel.
without assigning any sort of like
blame or like this is your thing. This is our.
That's the big thing with emotions and feelings is they're still your responsibility, regardless of whether whether he evokes anger from me. I still feel the anger. He's not mad. Nope. I'm the one that's mad, and I'm responsible for how I deal with my anger. Oh my
gosh, I'll never forget. There was I remember one day somebody made me mad. Who was it? I ain't gonna say where it was because that's neither here nor there. No, it was people that I'm still in contact with, so I can't say that I might get in trouble. But they made me mad by saying something. It was like, and I came into my week like feeling like I'm gonna crush it. I'm gonna do everything I need to do. I'm gonna be super productive, all that stuff. And then this person basically like ran down the list between me and a group of people where they were just like, you're not doing enough. This isn't like, we need this, that, and the third, and this hasn't been done, and this hasn't been done. And it wasn't constructive in a sense of like, this is how we're gonna do it to make it better. It was just like, you're awful.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Yeah, literally that. And it fucked up my whole week because I was pissed for the rest of the week. The rest of the week I could not get anything done because I was irritated. But I couldn't tell that person that because at the time that person was like an authority figure. So like if I said what I actually felt, I probably would have cussed them out. But number one. But number two, I also knew that person was not emotionally intelligent enough to understand the ramifications of what they said. So what frustrated me more was not that what was said, because what I knew for a fact is that what was said was not true of me. But I also knew that you would do this again in a heartbeat because you don't have the intelligence to recognize what you just did. Because regardless of how you meant it, if you tell somebody flat out, I'm disappointed in you, what do you expect them to feel but that you are disappointed in them and that maybe they should feel disappointed in themselves? Like, what are you expecting from them? It's like when you tell a child, like, well, I'm just really disappointed in you. That's gonna fuck up your child worse than anything because you telling them that you're disappointed in them is gonna make them feel worse than any whooping. Really, truly. And that's the truth. Like, that's why like a lot of people are transitioning from like capital punishment of like whipping their kids to like just like telling me like, how you feel. I'm
disappointed in you, Johnny.
Susan B, I am so disappointed in thee.
No, but you said something that's really key too is that like some of us will get into situations and have conversations with people where they just don't have that emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. And we can recognize that and see that, but then we still stay. And we still expect them to have the emotional intelligence that they have clearly shown you they don't have.
And there's a key difference in that where it's like, is it a person that you know doesn't have emotional intelligence and you're not telling them this is not the emotionally intelligent thing to be doing and acting? Or are you just letting them be the person they be and expecting a different outcome? Because then you're also not congruent. Because then you're expecting someone to change when you're not telling them how to change. Now, if you've told them this is a problem, this is why it's a problem, I need this, that, and the third to change. Otherwise, skedaddle, and they still aren't doing it, then clearly one of y'all is congruent, one of y'all is not, and that needs to. But if you're not congruent enough to be like, hey, this is what you're doing, although you're not in charge of my emotions, this is how it's affecting me. I need this to change, and I need you to be willing to do that for me if you want this to continue, and they still don't. Don't shoot them, but that's not congruent. But cut them off. Cut them off. You have a really hard issue. She has had, and I will say, in the past year, you have cut off a lot of people that were, one, not congruent, and two, just not good for your like overall growth and health.
I know.
You have been cutting off a lot of people, but it has not been easy for you, and it's very easy for me. I'll drop you like a hat. I will drop you like a cement brick. I will drop you like a full blue whale into the ocean.
So remember how earlier I said that my emotional intelligence outward is greater than inward?
Yeah.
So because of that, because I am able to like see and understand people's motivations, emotions, all that good stuff, when I weigh them together against mine, typically theirs is gonna outweigh mine. And it should not. Nobody's saying that that's what it should be like.
I'm saying very specifically, it is not how it's supposed to be.
It's not, but we're working on balancing it out. We're getting somewhere.
I don't think there needs to be a balance.
I meant more of like
making yours higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think. As like, here's the thing, and people say it all the time. It's such a cliche, but like, you only gonna live and die by yourself. No matter how long you live, no matter who's in your life, no matter any of that stuff, no matter what you do, like, you are the only person who has to live with you all the time. 24/7. You emotionally will always have to be more important than anybody else in your life. Your kids, your spouse, anybody. Because at the end of the day, if you are not aligned, you cannot give to anybody else. This fabulous term that I've heard recently is that you cannot give abundance if you do not have abundance overflowing.
The point that he said, it is important and should be noted that your emotional intelligence is your responsibility. Mm-hmm. And like he said, you are only with yourself 24/7 for the rest of your life. Like, and I honestly, when that actually hit my brain and I realized that, I was just like, wow, so I'm expending all this energy for everybody else who get to live their life and go on, and I'm just in here
who could come in, take all your energy and walk back out.
And I care, and I'm investing all this energy and time and resources to try to understand, figure out their emotions, control their emotions, help them with their emotions. And it's like, yes, I can help be a support and encouragement, but I still can't change their emotions at the end of the day. That's their responsibility.
Right. Whenever you're with anybody, you have to recognize, one, what you're investing, whether that's like emotional time, mental time, physical time, monetary time. You might be giving them money, you might be buying them food, whatever, purse, whatever. But like, you, whatever's clever. But the point is that you have to be, one, aware of what you're investing, and two, you have to be willing to know that it may not come back to you ever.
This is true.
And if you're okay with both of those things happening for that person, then you're congruent with your emotional investment to them. However, you shouldn't be investing unless you have stuff to give, one. And that comes from a place of abundance, not just because you want to.
Wow.
That was a direct attack.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're attacking people on their own YouTube channel now.
That's correct. Indeed. I mean, it's a wonderful thing to be a giver. We appreciate that you are one. We just know that you've also very much been taken advantage over because of it.
This is true.
So, you have to be aware of your investments, and also be willing to not get it back, but two, try to be smart about it and invest it in people who actually will not only try to give it back, but give it back tenfold if they can.
Those are the best kinds of people.
Mm-hmm.
My babes.
And they should be trying to outdo them, and then it's like, girl.
She do sometimes. It's me, Archie. It's fine. Emotional intelligence is not something that's easy, and I definitely suggest that if you struggle with it, if you have any trauma in your past, any sort of like situation to where you feel like you've had shame when it comes to your emotions, definitely find a mental health professional. Telehealth is very booming in this coronavirus pandemic time. There are cheap options, there are free options. Just go ahead and Google that, because I feel like when you know yourself and you're able to orient yourself in a congruent manner, you'll have those relationships that you want, those friendships that you want. You're able to cultivate the things that you seek when you can cultivate the things that you seek in yourself.
And I'll even add to this, some people are ashamed to not even be accepting of mental health professionals. And sometimes it just doesn't work for them. For me personally, like going into mental health, whether that was like psychology or having medication for like depression, that did not work for me. What helped me get to where I am now is really just looking inward. Sometimes that was just meditation. Sometimes I was just sitting by myself, because I'm still a very extroverted person, but valuing your introverted time where you're by yourself and no one's around you can really change and shape your mode of understanding yourself. So don't be afraid to try to figure it out yourself, but also don't be ashamed of seeking help from a professional or seeking professional help through the form of medication. There's medicine made because people have issues that these things can solve. Does it work for everybody? No. But the problem is that you shouldn't feel ashamed to try to find out what does work for you. And it will vary for everybody. So do what you gotta do to get where you need to get emotionally.
And I will see you guys next Monday.
Good luck,